بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Our discussion is about Hudus and Qidam, and this is the last lesson in the section about Taqaddum and Ta'akhur. So Hudus and Qidam, inshallah we will go to explain them, are related to the issue of Taqaddum and Ta'akhur. As you remember, we said there are different types of something preceding another thing or something coming after another thing. The most obvious one was time, preceding something in time. But we said there are other types of preceding. Now, using those discussions, we want to discuss something very important in both philosophy and kalam. And that is about whether this universe, this world which is created by God, is hadith or qadim. What mutakallimun, theologians, mean and believe, what philosophers mean and believe, these are the things that we are going, inshallah, to clarify. Before anything, let's first have a definition of Huduth and Qidam, and then we talk about different types of Huduth and Qidam, and then we will talk about the difference between philosophers and theologians. Hadith in Arabic means something which has happened. But we mean by hadith here something which is preceded by its own non-existence. Something which is preceded by its own non-existence. It didn't exist, then came to existence. Okay? And Qadim is the one which is not preceded by its own non-existence. It's not that it didn't exist and then started to exist. Qadim is something that there has been no history of non-existence for it. Sometimes they define these two in different ways. For example, they say hadith is something which is not preceded by existence of something else. Sorry, hadith is something which is preceded, yes. I said preceded or not preceded? Preceded. Hadith is something which is preceded by existence of something else. So you can say preceded by its own non-existence or preceded by existence of something else. Means there was something, but this was not there. Then this came. It goes back to the same idea that you can think of a condition, of a situation that this was not there. A, if it is hadith, means there was a condition that A didn't exist and something else existed, but this didn't exist, then it came to existence. Or for Qadim, sometimes they say is something which is not preceded by existence of something else. So either you say it's not preceded by its own non-existence, or it's not preceded by existence of something else. Okay? It means that in all conditions that you think, it was there. This is what philosophers mean by hadith and qadim. There is something that in the common usage of these two terms, people may say, and for example, they say hadith in the sense of something being newer, qadim, something being older. This is not philosophical usage. This is a kind of relative. So for example, if something has 1 year old, is 1 year old, another thing is 2 years old, they say this is, compared to that, it is qadim, it is old. Yeah, and the other one is new. It's a matter of comparison and relative. But the way philosophers say, it's not relative. It's in an absolute sense, in the sense you can say without bothering to which you are comparing, you say this is hadith or it's not hadith. If it is preceded by its own non-existence, it's preceded by non-existence, it's hadith. If not, it's qadim. Okay. Now, let's talk about hudus and qidam, which are essential, dhati. In order to explain this concept, we need to first make few introductory points. The first point, we said taqaddum and ta'akhur, precedence or following, something comes first, something comes late. We said it's not only a matter of time. It's not that something precedes only in time. We said there are other types of precedence. For example, we say 4, number 4, is even, is zawj. Is 4 first 4 and then even, or it's even first and then it is 4? So is it because it is 4 it is even, or it's because it is even it is 4, or they have no relation with each other? For sure you cannot say they have no relation with each other. There is a relation between 4 and being even, but which one is first? To be 4 seems to be first, because if you say it's because it's even it is 4, then we have other even figures which are not 4. So it's because it's 4, it's even. So to be 4 precedes to be even. Yes? To be 4 precedes being even. Is this precedence in time? No. This is in essence. This is in the analysis that our mind does about these two notions, these two concepts. It's not a matter of time. Okay? So, the first thing, which is a reminder of our previous discussions, is that precedence is not only precedence in time. Okay? Point 2. Every mahiyya, quiddity. You remember mahiyya? Yes? So, mahiyya or quiddity or whatness, which is for all the creatures. We said wajibul wujud has no mahiyya. If you say mahiyya for wajibul wujud, it's the same as its existence. Al-haqqu mahiyyatuhu an-niyyatu. That's another meaning, which means ma bihi shay huwa huwa. That's different. Mahiya in the normal sense is only for mumkinat. Yeah, we said everything which has mahiya is mumkinul wujud. You remember? We said imkan is a requirement of mahiya. كل ماهية ممكنة الوجود. What does it mean that mahiya is mumkinatul wujud? What does it mean? If I can use the board, so you can. الماهية من حيث هي ليست إلا هي لا موجودة ولا معدومة. If you focus on mahiya itself, mahiya is nothing other than itself. For example, mahiya of insan involves haywan and natiq. But to be existing or not existing is not inside mahiya. And this is why mahiya can sometimes exist or not exist. Yeah, if wujud was part of mahiya, then it had to always exist. If Adam was part of it, it had to always be non-existent. So we said this is not irtifa'un naqizain. Don't say either has to be mawjud or ma'dum. This is not about wujud and Adam outside. It is about about the concept of wujud or the concept of mahiyah being in the definition, being in the mahiyah. Okay. This laysiyah, philosophers from this laysat illahiyah or laysat mawjuda wala ma'duma, they say this laysiyah, not to be existent and not to be non-existent. They call this as something which is equivalent to imkan. Okay? So they say imkan is laysiyat dhatiyah. Okay? If someone who has not studied philosophy hears us, would not understand anything, even if they're Arabic speaking. What do you mean, laysiyat dhatiyah? Yeah. So they mean something is in its essence undecided about existence and non-existence, equal relation to existence and non-existence. Neither wujud is taken inside the definition, nor Adam is taken inside the definition. This is the meaning of imkan. Mutasawiyatul wujud بالنسبة متساوية النسبة بالنسبة للوجود والعدم. Okay. This understanding of imkan is very important for our discussion about huduth. And inshallah we come back to this. So please remember that sometimes they mean by imkan laysiyat dhatiyah. Ibn Sina has a sentence which is very famous, and again I go back to the board. This sentence has two interpretations. So Ibn Sina, or Avicenna as they call it in English, he says al-mumkinu من ذاته أن يكون ليس ومن علته أن يكون ice. Ice means existence. Lice means non-existence. So it's not used in the sense of a verb. Laisa is فعل ناقصة, yeah, like kana. But here it's used as a noun. Avicenna says mumkin, something which is contingent, by its very own essence deserves not to exist. Yeah? Can mumkin by itself exist? No. But when its cause, and it means of course complete cause, al-illatu tamma, when its complete cause is there, mumkin deserves to exist. Okay? So al-mumkinu min dhatihi an yakuna lays, means if it is up to its own essence, based on its own essence, nothing else, it should not exist. If it is because of its cause, it should exist. Okay? So one interpretation of this sentence of Ibn Sina is that they say Ibn Sina wants to refer to that laysiyat al-dhatiyya, that mumkin has laysiyat al-dhatiyya, means in itself, in its essence, is equal to existence and non-existence, means both of them are not taken there. The third point is about what is the criterion for needing cause. ما هو ملاك حاجة الممكن إلى العلة. Why something needs a cause? We had the discussion before, you remember? We said philosophers say إلة حاجة الممكن إلى العلة هي الإمكان. It's imkan, not wujud or hudus. It's imkan that implies being in need of cause. Because when something has mumkin, as a quality is mumkin, wujud is not necessary. Adam is not necessary. If any of these two happens, it's because of an external factor, which is illah, which is the cause. Okay? So, now, the question is how we can define huduth. If something existed after not existing, there was, for example, a time that it didn't exist and then it came to existence. Its existence is preceded by its own non-existence. This is called hadith zamani. So, al-huduth az-zamani. What does it mean? It means wujudul mumkine masbuqun salam بعدمه في زمن ما in a time, there was a time that this wujud was not there. Okay? A, for example, came to existence from this point. Before didn't exist. So existence is preceded by non-existence of itself. But now philosophers introduce another type of hudus, and that is al-hudus al-dhati. With these 3 points that we said, which means wujud al-mumkin or wujud al-shay masbuqun bil-laysiyyat al-zatiyah. وجود الشيء مسبوق بالليسية الذاتية. What does it mean? Every created being, before it exists, it is mumkin. Yeah? Something that inshallah we mention again, but several times we repeated this before, and I said you have to remember this. Al-mahiyatu taqarrarat fa'amkanat fahtajat fa'ujibat fa'wajabat fa'ujidat fa'wujidat. You have to remember this for the first night in the grave. So, this is very important formula. Yes? Al-mahiyatu taqarrarat. Means the very first thing is that formation of mahiyya. What is insan, for example? Haywan and other. This is the very first thing. Formation of mahiyya. Then contingency. Taqarrarat fa'amkanat. So imkan comes after formation. Then after imkan comes fahtajat, al-haja, need. Why something is needy? For cause. Because it's mumkin. Why it is mumkin? Because it's formed. Why it is formed? It's because mahiyya. After fahtajat, fa'ujibat. Ash-shay'u ma lam yajib lam yujad. Before it becomes necessary, it doesn't become existent. Yeah, this is wujub bil-ghayr, of course. Okay? So, ijab, necessitation, comes from the cause, then it becomes wajib. Ujibat, fa-wajabat. Then fa-ujidat, then existence is given, then it receives it. Of course, ijad and wujud are two sides of the same coin. The cause gives existence and then it exists. These stages are only in our understanding. These are relations between concepts. Outside, there is no 7 stages. Yeah? But in our so these are real stages, but not existential stages. Okay? So, this, for example, apple is a mumkin al-wujud. This apple is hadise, zamani, temporal, because there was a time that this apple was not there. But you can also say this apple is hadise dhati, because before its existence there was imkan, which is laysiyat al-dhatiyya. Laysiyat is Adam, a type of Adam. Yeah? So, this was preceded by laysiyat al-dhatiyya. Laysiyat al-dhatiyya is not to be existent, not to be non-existent. Okay? So, philosophers have tried to tell us there is another type of hudus. When you hear hudus, first it comes to your mind that it is something that there was a time that didn't exist, then it came to existence. Philosophers say, okay, this can be the obvious type of hudus, but there is another type of hudus. Don't close your mind. There is another type of hudus that something exists, but it is preceded by what? By laysiyat al-zatiyah. Why they mention this? Because there was a big debate, and still maybe many mutakallimin have the same idea as before, but some are now closer to philosophers. Mutakallimun had the idea, and still some have, that this world means ma siwallah, comprises of everything which is hadith zamani. Anything in this world has a history of Adam, non-existence. You cannot say they have always been there, or there is something other than God which is always there, because they thought to say something is eternal, something has no beginning, it means then it doesn't need creator. Yeah? For them, there is only one being which is eternal, and that is God. There can be no qadim. Everything has a beginning in time. Yes? So they had this idea. Alam is hadith. Therefore, the only qadim is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Philosophers say that your arguments are not complete. Your rational argument that you say if something existed always then doesn't need creator is not complete, because we have to see how did it exist. Has he existed by itself, or has it existed because of something else? Just because it always existed doesn't mean that it doesn't need creator. If something has always existed but under a cause, then it's needed, a dependent being. So the rational argument of mutakallimin is questioned by philosophers. Then they have naqli, transmitted argument. They say, when we look at the text, especially in hadith, we say alam is hadith. Philosophers say, yes, it is hadith, but what do you mean by hadith? Do you mean hadith zamani or hadith dhati? Philosophers say there are many concepts that we have in the Quran and Hadith that as soon as people hear, something physical comes to their mind. For example, when you hear about knowledge being light, al-ilmu nurun, what comes to your mind first? Physical light. Yeah? Or for example, when we say mizan, a scale for a'mal, what comes to your mind? First, physical scale comes to your mind. But you have to know that these are not physical things. So when you hear alam is hadith, first it comes to your mind that something that is preceded by time. But it can be hadith dhati. What does it mean, hadith dhati? Means something which is preceded by laysiyat dhatiyyah. Okay? But then there is a problem here. There's an objection here. Please listen very carefully, because it's maybe difficult for you to get it from the book. It's a bit complicated. There is an objection here. Someone may say, hadith should be preceded by its own non-existence. not by any non-existence. So far, the way you have explained Hudus al-Dhati is, you said it is preceded by Laysiyat al-Dhatiyya. Laysiyat al-Dhatiyya is imkan, is not non-existence of this. Hadith should be preceded by its own non-existence, not by any non-existence. Okay? So you have somehow developed a kind of Adam to say that it's preceded by Adam, but it has to be Adam of itself. Okay? They say, okay, we give you another explanation, which is perhaps more likely to be what Ibn Sina meant. This needs attention. When we say al-mahiyatu amkanat, taqarrarat, fa'amkanat, fahtajat, fa'ujibat, fa'wajabat, fa'ujidat, fa'wujidat. When mahiyya comes to existence? In the last stage. In the stage before, do we have wujud? No. In the stage before? No. In the stage before? No. So, we say Hadith Zati is the one whose existence is preceded by its own non-existence in the previous stages. Okay? And at least you can say in its own essence. In its essence, there is no existence. So it's preceded by non-existence in its essence. So there is taqaddum zati. Adam has taqaddum zati over wujud. Is it clear? So in this way, now you can make sense of hadith zati and hadith zamani. And in both cases, wujud is preceded by its own non-existence, but is either non-existence in time or non-existence in essence. Philosophers believe that we can have creatures that are created by Allah and they have limited life span. We can have creatures which are qadim. Maybe, for example, angels have always existed. There is no time that they didn't exist, because time is for physical beings. But even if they have always been there, but they are still dependent. Actually, they are dependent for a longer period, if we can use period. Yeah, because we depend on God, for example, 50 years, 60 years, and then we go to another stage. But they have always been there, dependent on God. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen.